Hello everyone, and welcome to the Cheapy Joe's Workshop channel.
I had a saw, and I used it for just about everything I did, and one day I turned it on, and it started making noise and smelling like smoke, and it couldn't move. So I had to buy another saw. Voila, my new saw. But the thing about it is I have this table, and I want to use it. Now I devised, or I made my own router table. I watched a lot of videos and seen a lot of stuff, and I made my own router table, and it works quite well, but we'll discuss that a little bit in another video, and I'll show you how we did it. But in the meantime, I'll show you my router table. Here's my router table, my little work table. I made my own. This is, in our shop, we make everything. We don't buy anything. We make our own tables, our own everything. Our own feather boards, we'll talk about that. Our own device to suck up to put a vacuum on the router table. Now, the thing about this router that my wife bought for me is it's a plunge router. And a plunge router has springs on it, you have to compress it, and it's very difficult to adjust heights on it when it's underneath a table. We'll talk about that later, but I want to show it to you, okay? So you'll understand why I want to do this. All right, so I have a table that's split in two with two hinges, and I have my router mounted underneath it. All right? Now, like I was telling you before, a plunge router has the springs on it, and it's very difficult to adjust the height when it's underneath a table in a table. All right? Now, if you watch this, you can see how difficult it is to push up and down. So what I did is I devised this lift, okay, that you can actually buy in stores, but I made my own. All right? Now, back to my router table. My new device, and we'll keep you informed as we progress with this idea. Now, table saw has a lift in it already, okay? So you have to raise it up, and it moves the blade up and down, okay? Just like this one, all right? It don't work anymore, but it still has the lift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't mount the router to this lift and turn it over and use it for a brand new router table that's much bigger, okay? And you can use a miter gauge. A lot of times when you're working with your router table, you use a miter gauge, but I don't have T-slots in my thing, and it's a really small table. So we'll keep you informed of our progress as we move along. Thank you for watching our little video. All right, so we got the motor out, we got the motor apart. We took the cap, or the mounting, the bracket off the front of the motor. All right, once we looked at it, we seen that the very end of the motor is actually what makes the blade move up, the motor move up and down, because it's attached through a piece of metal, okay, to the other side. To the other side, if you come around to the other side, you can see it. This bracket is attached to this, and it slides in this rail. Okay. Now it had another bracket that was attached to this, and what it did is it had a divider that went through the table to protect for their saw protection. Okay, for the blade protection. All right. Now, as I was looking at this, I'm thinking I have 3 holes that I can use to mount a piece of wood to and make an L bracket with a hole in it that I can attach my router to. But I thought to myself, what if I took this, because it's supposed to mount this way, I said, what if we attach it just the opposite way? If I attach it to the other side. So I take this and I put this in here, okay? Now, once again, you have to realize that this here is a saw that my wife bought for me 3 years ago, and I really hated to part with it. It broke my heart when it broke it. I really, really liked it. It did a fantastic job for me, and unfortunately, like everything else, everything gets old, including me, and breaks. So if you attach it to this, just give me a minute. I took the socket off the end of the driver so I could turn it faster. Okay. put another one in here just to hold it so you can see what I'm talking about. Now you might ask yourself, why don't you just go to the store and buy you a router table? Well, that's an option, but they're anywhere from $30 to $150, and I don't want to spend $30. I don't want to spend $150. I want to take this old piece of my table saw, and it's not done working for me yet, and use it. Okay, so now we got this in place. Now, if you look at this, I have this nice square piece of metal that I can drill and tap. If I cut these ears off, and look at what happens. It'll move. It'll move up and down. I gotta hold it in there because I gotta hold it in place because I don't have it bolted. If I take this screw, just a minute, give me a second. There's a screw on the top of this. You take this screw and I put this screw in there real quick so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so now I got this bracket in place, and now if I move it, up and down. Okay, I gotta get it adjusted and put in there correctly, but you see that it's moving up and down. If I had a router attached to this on the other side, I can now adjust the height of my router without having to crawl under the table. So here's where we're at. We got the router out of my old router table, all right? The way that I designed this is I actually attached the lift to the top of the table. The table comes in 3 pieces, and one side folds up so I have access to my router. The problem with the router table is guess what? It's really small. Now I don't do really big work. Everything I do is usually miniature or small type of stuff. I don't make big tables and stuff. And it works really good, but like I said, the problem is it's very small. So my saw quit me, and now I got a table saw with a motor that don't work, and I'm thinking, hey, why don't we use that table saw to put my router in, and I'll have a bigger table. Now, I have a plunge router, and there are different styles of routers, obviously, and you might be asking yourself, why does he want to use a table saw for his plunge router? Well, I don't go out and buy 3 and 4 plunge routers to do different things. And I chose a plunge router because it fits the bill for all things. First of all, if you want to do the outside of a table or whatever you're working on, you can. Okay, if you want to do the inside and draw a line or something like that, you can because it's plunge. That's what a plunge router does. All right, it moves up and down. But when you have it in a table, you can't. It's very difficult to move this. So you're probably asking, why don't I use one of those routers that have a hex screw that you can adjust through the table and move it up and down? Once again, I don't want 2 or 3 routers, I just want one, and this suits the bill for me just fine. Now, as I explained to you earlier, what we did is we removed the motor from the table saw. And I took the housing, because the housing is actually part of the mechanism for the lift. It actually moves up and down. This is where the motor went, okay, and that's where the saw blade was at. Was on this side of the platform that the motor rested on. So I told you earlier what I was going to do was use this mounting bracket and cut the ears off of it and attach a piece of wood to it. Well, after I got it all apart and I'm looking at it, I don't have to do all that. All right. The mounting, the bracket had a hole in it with threads. All right. So I thought I'll cut the ears off, and all I have to do is compress the router. So I used an L bracket. I put a bolt in the end of it, in the end of it, mounted it to it. All right. And now my plunge router goes in there, and it will compress. All I have to do is crank it, make sure that the the lock is unlocked, and if I turn the handle, it now compresses. And as it compresses, it sends the bit taller through the table, so now I can adjust the heights to the depth of cut that I want. A pretty precision cut, huh? It moves in increments. We haven't actually figured out what those increments are, but we will. And one of the things that we got to do now is we have to attach the router to the table. Now, as I was moving this up and down, one of the things that I noticed is this, okay, is there's a lot of deflection in this plate. So what I'm going to do is there's a couple of holes here. I'm going to put another L bracket from like this one from here to here, so I can straighten this up and I don't get any deflection. When you're routing with when you're working with your router, you don't want the blade to move, the bit to move back and forth, because it makes the cut untrue. So what we're going to do to mount this to the table is I took the mounting plate off, the plastic mounting plate that it comes with, and there's holes in it. There's 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I use these same holes in this table. But when I put this table together, I had a really difficult time making a pattern fit so I could drill holes in my table. I was only able to make 2 holes that would actually work, one here and one there. All right, but it was sufficient enough to hold the router stable enough that I could use it. So this has T-tracks on this side as well. You can see where the bolts are at in the T-tracks. Like over here, there's bolts in here that you can move back and forth. All right. Well, what I got to do now is I need to take this table top off of the saw, lift it up, and put a couple bolts in these T-tracks so that I can mount my router to the table. Now, things left to do are this. I got to cut a door here, either on this side or this side. I haven't decided which side, probably this side, because I want to attach this to this here. I want to make a door so I can access my router. The router has a variable speed adjustment on the top. It has the locking mechanism for the plunge. It locks it in place so that it can't move. And I really don't think I'm going to need the locking device so much as I am the variable speed adjustment. But once again, I'm trying to stay away from having to crawl under the table to make all my adjustments, and that's why I built this. Now we're going to make another video, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, you have to realize that I am not a professional woodworker by any means. All right, and everything that I've done so far here in my little shop, I've done by trial and error. I was watching a video a while back, and it was about a little boy, and I think he was in Asia or somewhere back in the eastern part of the world, and we were trying to build little houses for our queen, for our guinea pigs. And we saw this video, and this little boy, he had a shovel, a bucket, some mud, and some straw. He built the most incredible castle for his animals that was imaginable. And it's the same here. We could go to the store and buy a big old fancy table and all this stuff and 3 or 4. First of all, we don't have the money for that. And second of all, I think that the best experience as a teacher is experience. Everything we did, I can't explain to you how many hours that I spent with my router just trying to get a router to work to cut a pattern in a piece of wood without sending it clear across the room, because I didn't know that you have to cut the wood in a certain direction. We're going to make a video for beginners, and we'll go along. And now we're working on this, and we'll just keep going with it. And we hope that you've enjoyed it so far. And if you have ideas, send us an email. We'll put our email and our information at the end of this video, and hopefully it'll work. Alrighty, guys. Moment of truth. Come on in. Uh-oh. What do we got? It must be our router table. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. Voila! She is complete. Now, was it easy? Some glitches along the way, but it's complete and it's exactly what we wanted. So, here's what we got. The first thing we did, like I said, is we cut holes in the side of the table. All right? We have perfect access to our router so that we can change the bits. On the other side, I cut another hole so that we have a place for storage. We can put our tools or whatever we need. Okay? Now we talked about what we was going to do about the switch. What we did with the switch is my wife bought a little switch, and the way that it works, the switch is here, okay? And the way that it works is the table plugs into the switch, which is mounted to this. It has an on and off switch, and then the power comes in from the back side and plugs into the switch. So I can unplug the router from the switch and take it and use it as a plunge router. It was really important that I could continue to use it. If I would have wired it direct to a switch, that means it would have been stuck and I'd have had to rewire it. We completed our fence. Now the nice thing about this table is I have T-tracks, so I can move my fence back and forth. I put slides on it so we can access that. I mounted the dust collection off of the router that it came with to the back side of it. So we have all that complete. Now, one of the little problems I had is when we cut the metal out from the sides. Okay, I used a plunge router. It's called a buzz saw, and it works. You push down on it and it exposes the saw and it cuts. And one of the problems is that the metal is very hard. So when you plunge into the metal, it has a tendency to want to kick back. So if you have one of those, please make attention. You can actually see where I slipped off the pattern that I wanted to go. That was one of the problems. The next problem we had is on the back side on the router we have an L bracket that actually is attached to the lift that moves up and down. Well, the table saw, when it was a table saw, the lift does this. Well, I didn't tighten up I didn't tighten it up, so when I went to crank it up, it moved, and the L bracket moved, and it got caught between it. I had to take it all apart to fix it. So what I did is I tightened the heck out of it so I can't ever move it again, and that won't be a problem. The last problem we had is the router, the saw has a plate. It's removable, so you could access the blade to change it. Well, it wasn't quite flush. So when I would take a piece of wood, it would hang up on it. Okay, so what I did is I took my saw, I took my grinder, put a 80 grit paper on it, and I sanded it off. I closed the slot where the saw would protrude through the table. Now, the router works perfect with my little hand crank, and I measured it, and I can raise it up in increments up to 3 millimeters. So it's a very precise tool now. All right. So now I also added a nice spacer between the table and the stand, and we'll talk about that why later. All right. Now, if we take this off, the table now can also serve. I drilled 4 holes in the table. I also have my little miter saw. It's not an electric miter saw, but it works fine for me. I only paid 20 euros for it. So I got 2 holes, two bolts in it. It fits in the slots very nicely. And now I have a nice table for my saw. Also, the saw on both ends of the table extend. Okay? All right, so I can open it up, and I now have a table for my lathe. So it's a very versatile little tool. It sure beats the old table that I had. This little area right here, I covered it up where the router was, and this was the table before, as opposed to the table now. So it works great. There's no problems with that. The switch works wonderful. Just come over here, flip it on. You can crank it up to make adjustments with your fence on the back of it. Now, I told you that I was gonna tell you about the spacer that I put in the middle, in between, huh? The reason is because the two tables, my new saw and my old saw, their heights weren't the same. So what I did is I put this little spacer in between to bring it up to the same height as my other table. Now I have also a huge work table. One for my saw and one for my router. So does my little idea work pretty good? Yes. Now, a couple things I'd like to talk about is the lift. If you can buy a router with an adjustable on the top that you don't need, but the reason I did this is because I want the router to work in all instances, in a table and in my hand. All right? That pretty much concludes this. Oh wait, except for, hey, look at this. The hardware. We spent $6 on a package of hardware. We spent $3 on the switch. We spent $9 on the wood for a grand total of $18. That's Cheapy Joe's show for today. Please come back and see us again. We'll have other updates and videos. Please subscribe to our channel. Please like us. Tell your friends about us. And if you have ideas or questions, please don't feel free to write to us. Thank you and have a great day. We'll all see you later. Come back soon.